unshakable core. Unlike the Alpha, whose power is often loud and visible, the Sigma's strength is subtle, a silent confidence that draws attention without demanding it. This flexibility is often mistaken for inconsistency, but it is, in fact, intentional and deeply rooted in self-awareness. The Sigma male understands that true strength is not in dominating a room, but in harmonizing with it, adjusting his approach without betraying his values or essence. Imagine a chameleon, not as a creature that hides, but as one that navigates its environment with grace, aligning with surroundings while preserving its unique colors. This is the art of Sigma shapeshifting, the ability to inhabit diverse social landscapes, professional arenas, or personal circles without losing one's authenticity. Neuroscience supports this adaptability, showing that individuals who can regulate their social behaviors effectively, switching communication styles, reading environments, and managing emotions, tend to build stronger networks and experience higher emotional intelligence, both hallmarks of the Sigma personality. Psychologically, this trait reflects a strong internal locus of control, meaning that a Sigma male directs his actions according to his own principles rather than external pressures. Socially, it allows him to navigate complex interactions with ease, earning respect without seeking approval. As we explore 8 subtle truths behind this shape-shifting ability, we uncover layers of high-value masculinity that go beyond bravado and bravura. Each trait reveals a blend of introspection, adaptability, and grounded authenticity that few discuss but many silently admire. By walking slowly through these truths, we invite reflection on the nature of strength, the power of intentional change, and the enduring impact of living in alignment with one's core, demonstrating that true mastery often speaks not in noise, but in calm, deliberate presence. Let this be a quiet conversation, no urgency, no tension, just shared insight and soft clarity. If you're ready, let's begin. Number 1, adaptive intelligence rooted in self-knowledge. The Sigma man's ability to shift is not rooted in insecurity or a desire to please others. It stems from a profound self-awareness and a deep understanding of his environment. Unlike those who change their behavior to seek approval, the Sigma male adapts because he recognizes that life is fluid and each situation calls for a different approach. This flexibility is a reflection of emotional intelligence, a trait consistently linked by psychologists to higher levels of personal and professional success. The Sigma male moves through the world with a quiet confidence, understanding that strength is not rigid and dominance is not always necessary. In social settings, he can be soft, approachable, and even playful, creating space for connection without losing his sense of self. In contrast, when clarity or decisiveness is required, he can pivot seamlessly, speaking with authority and acting with precision. This is not performative, it is a deliberate choice born from experience and reflection. Neuroscience supports this adaptability, showing that individuals who can regulate their behavior based on context, what psychologists call situational awareness, tend to have more resilient social and professional networks. The Sigma male embodies this principle naturally, recognizing that authenticity is not a single mode of behavior, but a consistent alignment with internal values across varying external circumstances. Moreover, his ability to observe before acting allows him to read the emotional undercurrents of a room, adjusting his approach so he neither dominates unnecessarily nor retreats out of fear. This balance of awareness and adaptability can be seen in historical figures often described as lone strategists or visionary leaders, individuals who influence their world not through loud assertion but through a quiet, calculated presence that commanded respect. In everyday life, the Sigma male's shifting is subtle. He may laugh at the right moment, listen intently, or stand firm in his convictions, but each choice aligns with a self-knowing that never wavers. It is this combination of adaptability, insight, and integrity that allows him to navigate complex social landscapes effortlessly, leaving others both intrigued and inspired. In essence, the Sigma male's shift is a masterclass in living with awareness, proving that true confidence does not need to be loud. It simply needs to be present, deliberate, and unshakable. Number 2, value-based alignment, not external approval. A Sigma male's ability to shapeshift is often misunderstood. It's not about being fake or manipulative. Nor is it a desperate attempt to gain approval. Rather, it is a sophisticated form of social intelligence, a skill honed through self-awareness and a deep understanding of human dynamics. Instead of rigidly enforcing his personality in every scenario, he observes the context, reads the room, and adapts his approach to maximize effectiveness. This might mean changing his tone in a professional meeting, adjusting his body language in a social setting, or even altering his wardrobe to suit a particular environment. Yet despite these external adjustments, his core principles, integrity, independence, and self-respect, remain intact. This is what separates true adaptability from mere conformity. It's an art of communication rooted in psychology and behavioral science that allows him to navigate complex social landscapes without compromising his essence. Research in social psychology shows that people who can adapt their social behavior while maintaining authenticity are often perceived as more competent and charismatic, which explains why Sigma males often command respect silently rather than seeking it overtly. Their adaptability also extends to problem solving. By observing how different contexts shape outcomes, they can tailor their strategies to ensure success, whether in negotiations, collaborations, or casual interactions. Interestingly, this shapeshifting is not superficial. It's a deliberate alignment with the environment rather than a surrender of self. It's akin to a chameleon blending into its surroundings, not to hide, but to operate effectively within the ecosystem. This skill, often called situational intelligence, is a hallmark of high-value individuals who understand that influence is more about perception and timing than about force or volume. Moreover, historical figures known for their strategic brilliance, such as Sun Tzu or Leonardo da Vinci, exemplified this principle. They were able to move seamlessly through different social, political, and intellectual circles, shaping their presentation to achieve objectives without compromising their inner convictions. In essence, a Sigma male's shapeshifting is a dance of presence and awareness. It allows him to engage, influence, and navigate the world efficiently, all while remaining anchored in his authentic self. Rather than a chameleon seeking approval, he is a deliberate and silent strategist, using adaptability as a tool to live effectively, respectably, and powerfully. Number 3. Emotional fluidity without losing ground. A man with such profound emotional intelligence is a rare presence in any room. He moves through emotional landscapes, calm, somber, joyful, with a fluidity that almost seems effortless. Yet it is grounded in a deep understanding of himself and those around him. This ability is not just a matter of charm or instinct. It is backed by psychological research, which shows that emotional intelligence, or EQ, is a key predictor of personal and professional success. Unlike raw intellect, which measures cognitive capacity, emotional intelligence allows a person to perceive, assess, and manage emotions in a way that promotes connection and understanding. When he is calm, his composure has a stabilizing effect on others, reducing stress and creating a sense of safety in tense situations. In somber moments, he exhibits genuine empathy, a trait rooted in mirror neurons and the brain's natural capacity for compassion, allowing him to resonate with the pain and struggles of those around him without being overwhelmed. In joy, his presence amplifies happiness, encouraging others to embrace celebration and shared positivity, which studies have linked to improved mental health and strengthened social bonds. Yet throughout all these emotional shifts, he remains consistently responsible and grounded, embodying the principle that maturity is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. This steadiness is not simply a social skill, it is an internal discipline honed through self-awareness, reflection, and a conscious effort to respond rather than react. Neuroscience supports this as well, showing that individuals with high emotional intelligence tend to have stronger connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, enabling more measured responses to emotional stimuli. In practical terms, this makes him reliable in leadership, resilient in adversity, and magnetic in relationships. People instinctively trust someone who can navigate their own emotional currents while remaining sensitive to the feelings of others. Ultimately, his emotional intelligence transforms interactions into meaningful exchanges, not just transactions. It is a quiet power, one that does not seek attention but naturally commands respect. Those who observe him often find themselves reflecting on their own emotional responses, inspired to cultivate similar depth and balance. In a world where impulsivity and superficiality often dominate, his presence is a reminder that true strength lies not in dominance or control, but in empathy, responsibility, and the graceful mastery of the human heart. Number 4, silently observant, subtly responsive. Instead of reacting immediately, a Sigma male first observes, taking in every nuance of the situation before he decides how to engage. This approach is not born of hesitation or weakness, but of strategic awareness and self-mastery. Neuroscience shows that humans have a part of the brain called the amygdala, which reacts instinctively to threats or surprises, often triggering immediate emotional responses. A Sigma male, however, demonstrates a higher level of prefrontal cortex regulation, the area responsible for rational thinking and long-term planning. By pausing and assessing, he essentially overrides knee-jerk reactions, allowing him to respond with clarity, precision, and intention. This creates what many describe as shape-shifting behavior, not in the sense of being fake, but in the way he adapts his energy, tone, and presence to match the moment. He might be calm and almost invisible in a tense environment, yet confident and commanding in a room where leadership is required. This adaptability is deeply rooted in observation and empathy. He studies patterns, reads body language, and gauges energy without being intrusive, which allows him to navigate social situations more effectively than those who act impulsively. From a psychological perspective, this aligns with emotional intelligence, the ability to perceive, understand, and manage emotions in oneself and others. Sigma males often excel in this domain, understanding that timing and delivery can be far more influential than volume or force. History and literature are full of figures who exemplify this quiet power. Think of a strategist like Sun Tzu, who emphasized knowing your environment and your adversary before taking action, or literary figures who wield influence subtly, letting their presence ripple through situations without unnecessary display. In daily life, this shape-shifting allows Sigma males to avoid unnecessary conflict while still asserting themselves when it matters, creating an aura of unpredictability and depth that others find compelling. Their restraint is not about suppressing personality, it's about expressing it with precision. Every word, gesture, and decision is filtered through this lens of awareness. By observing first, he gathers information that most miss, identifies opportunities that others overlook, and acts in a way that maximizes effectiveness while remaining true to himself. This balance of authenticity and strategic adaptability is what makes the Sigma male both enigmatic and highly effective, turning quiet observation into a form of social mastery that commands respect without demanding it. Number 5, purposeful influence over performance. He may take on different roles, not to perform, but to influence positively. This distinction is vital because while most people adapt their behavior to gain approval or recognition, the man who understands himself deeply does so to create meaningful impact. When he steps into the role of a leader, for instance, it isn't about commanding others or feeding an ego, it's about bringing clarity and direction where there is confusion. Leaders throughout history, figures like Marcus Aurelius, who balanced power with philosophy, or Nelson Mandela, who blended political leadership with moral integrity, demonstrated that true influence comes from guiding with purpose, not from seeking the spotlight. At other times, he might slip into the role of a listener, a position often undervalued, yet incredibly powerful. Listening attentively not only builds trust, but also allows him to gather information and understand perspectives that can shape wiser decisions. Research in psychology shows that active listening improves both professional relationships and emotional intelligence, qualities that elevate influence without a word of self-promotion. There are also moments when he chooses to become a student again, recognizing that growth is impossible without humility. Even the most accomplished minds, Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, or Steve Jobs, were relentless learners, constantly shifting their role to absorb knowledge that would later fuel innovation and breakthroughs. And sometimes he acts as a guide, offering insights or mentorship that empower others rather than chaining them to dependence. This kind of guidance mirrors the principles of servant leadership, a philosophy proven to strengthen organizations and communities because it emphasizes service before self-interest. What ties all these roles together is not performance for the sake of applause, but purposeful adaptation aimed at long-term goals. He is not swayed by fleeting attention, which neuroscience confirms activates the brain's dopamine reward system but quickly fades, leaving people craving more external validation. Instead, he plays the long game, investing in roles that align with his values, principles, and vision of the future. In this way, his adaptability becomes a quiet but powerful strategy. Less about masks and more about mastery, less about pretending and more about positioning himself where he can create the most impact. This is the difference between living for attention and living with intention. Number 6, minimalism in expression, depth in substance. His shifts are seldom flashy, and that's precisely what makes them powerful. Unlike those who rely on loud gestures or dramatic displays to command attention, he operates with a refined economy of movement. Psychology tells us that non-verbal communication often carries more weight than words. Studies estimate that over 65% of communication is conveyed through body language alone. This means subtle cues like posture, hand placement, eye contact, and micro-expressions often say more than an entire speech. In high-value men, particularly those who align with the Sigma archetype, this principle is amplified. They understand that less is more, and instead of wasting energy on exaggerated motions, they conserve it for intentional, meaningful expression. For example, a deliberate pause before speaking not only draws attention but also signals confidence and self-control. In leadership settings, we see this mirrored in historical figures like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire with calm composure rather than grand theatrics, or in modern examples like Clint Eastwood, whose quiet intensity often overshadows the need for overt display. The key lies in the paradox. Restraint communicates strength. When a man doesn't feel the need to prove himself through flamboyance, it suggests inner security, a rare quality that naturally attracts respect. In social dynamics, this plays out in fascinating ways. People tend to lean in, both physically and mentally, to catch the understated signals, making his presence magnetic without him forcing it. Anthropologists even note that in tribal societies, leaders were not always the loudest or the most aggressive, but often the ones who moved with purposeful calm, exuding reliability and control. Today, this same principle applies in boardrooms, relationships, and everyday interactions. His adaptability is subtle too. In a business meeting, his communication may lean towards steady eye contact and controlled hand gestures, while in personal spaces it may shift to a softer, more relaxed stance, never out of performance, but out of authenticity to the moment. The consistency is what stands out. Regardless of the setting, his gestures are intentional. Every nod, every silence, every measured movement becomes a language of its own. It's not about doing more, it's about doing less with greater impact. And in a world addicted to noise and exaggeration, that quiet strength speaks volumes. Number 7, resilient inner core under gentle flexibility. Like bamboo bending in the wind, the Sigma male embodies a rare paradox, adaptability without compromise. To the outside world, he appears to shift easily, adjusting his tone, pace, and presence depending on the environment he's in. Yet beneath that fluid surface lies an inner core that refuses to fracture under pressure. This ability to shapeshift is not a sign of weakness or deceit, but rather a demonstration of resilience. Bamboo itself is one of the strongest natural materials on Earth, lightweight, hollow, and flexible, yet stronger than steel when it comes to tensile strength. That's why it's used in building scaffolding across Asia, trusted to hold immense weight without snapping. The Sigma male mirrors this principle in the social sphere. While others may feel the need to dominate or conform, he adjusts, observing quietly, learning deeply, and moving with precision. His adaptability is strategic. It allows him to avoid unnecessary conflict, navigate complex social landscapes, and thrive in environments where rigidity would spell downfall. But make no mistake, his yielding is temporary and situational. At the center of his being lies an unshakable independence, a commitment to his values and principles that cannot be swayed by external forces. This is why he often confuses people. They can't tell if he's conforming or resisting because in truth, he's doing both. His resilience is motion itself. He bends, he flows, and he adapts. But like bamboo after a storm, he always springs back to form. And just as bamboo forests flourish quietly and steadily, so too does the Sigma male build strength and influence away from the spotlight, proving that true power often lies in silent, unbreakable resilience. Number 8. Evolving yet timeless selfhood. He transforms gradually through experience, reflection, and learning, always guided by his evolving sense of values and purpose. This process is not about adopting a false mask or bending to the expectations of others. It is about refining who he truly is. Just as a tree strengthens its roots and expands its branches with each passing season, he adapts and reshapes himself in response to life's trials and opportunities. Psychologists call this adaptive self-concept, the ability to grow without losing one's essence. It's the difference between change for survival and change for meaning. Think of the Japanese art of where broken pottery is repaired with gold. Its cracks don't erase its history, they highlight its resilience and beauty. In the same way, his shapeshifting is not abandonment of identity, but an expansion of it. Each transformation deepens his character, reminding us that real strength lies not in resisting growth, but in aligning it with values that endure. This is growth, not change for its own sake. There's something quietly powerful about a man who moves through life as himself, yet different with every dawn. This shapeshifting isn't about hiding, it's about harmony, aligning where necessary without ever dimming the core that defines him. It's less performance and more integrity in motion. If you felt the pull to adapt, to evolve, yet to keep hold of who you are, know that this gentle shape-shifting is not only natural, it's a strength few appreciate, but many can learn from. Stay quietly resolute, and until next time, be well. They say time is the great equalizer, that no man can outrun the years. But then, there are the exceptions, the ones who defy the very laws of age. While most people grow weary, wrinkled, and worn down by the grind of life, a rare breed of men seem to walk untouched by the hands of time. You've seen them, the Sigma males. Mysterious, unbothered, and radiating a quiet strength that only sharpens with age. What makes them so different? Why do Sigmas seem to carry a timeless aura while others fade into the background? This isn't just about good genetics or lucky breaks. No, the answer lies in how these men live, think, and move through the world. Sigma males aren't chasing the crowd. They're not burning themselves out trying to impress, nor are they trapped in endless cycles of stress from trying to fit in. Instead, they conserve their energy, guard their peace, and choose battles that matter. And this way of life, it leaves a mark, not just on the mind, but on the body itself. While others crumble under pressure, Sigmas thrive in solitude. While others waste years chasing approval, Sigmas grow stronger in silence. Science shows that stress accelerates aging, while purpose and independence slow it down. The Sigma embodies this truth. Each wrinkle avoided, each ounce of vitality preserved, is a result of choices most men can't bring themselves to make, and the result an ageless presence that commands respect without a word spoken. So if you've ever wondered why Sigmas remain sharp, magnetic, and powerful long after others have lost their edge, stay tuned. Because today we're diving deep into the 7 powerful reasons Sigma males stay ageless, while the rest fade away. And trust me, by the end you'll see why the Sigma life isn't just a mindset. It's the closest thing men have to a fountain of youth. Reason 1, freedom from social pressure. The modern world is designed in a way that often depletes men before their time, not through physical aging alone, but through the invisible weight of constant stress. From the moment they step into adulthood, men are pushed into a cycle of relentless competition, racing for promotions, possessions, and social status. This endless climb is amplified by the noise of modern culture, where comparison has become a sport fueled by social media. Studies in psychology show that chronic stress triggers higher levels of cortisol, a hormone directly linked to premature aging, weakened immunity, and even shortened lifespans. For many men, the pressure to be enough in the eyes of others, whether through wealth, achievements, or physical image, leads to exhaustion that strips away not just vitality, but the very essence of youth. Yet the Sigma male walks a different path, one that offers a striking contrast to this burnout-driven lifestyle. He refuses to measure his worth by the yardstick of society, choosing instead to define success on his own terms. This rejection of the rat race does not mean laziness or lack of ambition. It means liberation from the need for external validation. By detaching from hollow competitions, the Sigma conserves his most precious resource, energy. Modern research in neuroscience confirms that a calm, balanced state of mind not only reduces stress, but also actively supports cellular repair, allowing the body to function more efficiently and age more slowly. Where other men crumble under the weight of expectations, the Sigma thrives in solitude and self-direction, avoiding the corrosive effects of stress that so often accelerate decline. He understands that true strength is not found in the constant grind, but in the mastery of detachment. This mindset grants him a form of resilience that keeps him sharper, calmer, and more youthful, even as others show the early signs of wear. The Sigma male's refusal to be consumed by the hierarchy is not just a rebellion, it is a preservation strategy. He sidesteps the invisible traps that drain life from so many men, choosing instead a life aligned with his values and inner compass. In doing so, he demonstrates a timeless truth, that peace of mind is the greatest anti-aging secret of all. While others chase approval at the cost of their vitality, the Sigma preserves both his spirit and his youth, proving that freedom, not frenzy, is the true key to lasting strength. Reason 2, self-mastery. Over stress, most men move through life at the mercy of their emotions, and it shows not only in their behavior, but also in their health and appearance. Anger, fear, and jealousy are not just passing moods. They create physiological storms in the body. When a man rages, his cortisol levels spike, his blood pressure rises, and his body enters a state of fight or flight. This constant stress response accelerates cellular aging, shortens telomeres, the protective caps on DNA, and increases inflammation, which scientists have directly linked to premature aging. Stress, in many ways, is a silent killer that doesn't just drain years off life, but also robs men of vitality, resilience, and clarity. Yet here lies the Sigma's advantage. While others are consumed by their emotions, he practices the art of detachment. He doesn't repress or deny what he feels. Instead, he observes those emotions like clouds passing through the sky, refusing to let them dictate his next move. This ability to remain calm under pressure is more than just a personality trait. It is a form of inner discipline that shields him from the corrosive effects of chaos. Psychologists call this emotional regulation, and studies show that people who master it live longer, healthier lives. It is why the Sigma, even when life throws him into storms, seems untouched by the wear and tear that ages his peers. While others panic and make reckless choices, his focus remains steady, his decisions deliberate. Over time, this mastery compounds. Lower stress equals stronger immunity, slower aging, sharper cognition, and even a calmer presence that others can feel. In essence, control over stress is control over time itself. Think of it like this. Two men face the same crisis. One explodes with anger, drains his energy, and leaves his body weakened. The other remains composed, conserving his strength and moving forward with precision. A decade later, you can see the difference in their faces, their posture, and their overall aura. The Sigma's secret is not found in external tricks or quick fixes, but in the cultivation of an inner fortress that stress cannot breach. By mastering his emotions rather than being mastered by them, he not only gains freedom of mind, but also bends the very perception of aging in his favor. In a world where stress shortens lives, the Sigma's discipline makes him appear timeless. Reason 3, solitude as renewal. For most people, loneliness feels like a heavy burden, a silent thief that drains joy, vitality, and purpose. Yet for the Sigma male, solitude operates on the opposite spectrum. It doesn't deplete him, it restores him. Alone time isn't a void to be filled, but a strategic sanctuary where his spirit sharpens and his mind expands. While many scramble to fill silence with noise and shallow relationships, the Sigma retreats to silence as if it were a wellspring of power. Science even backs this paradox. Studies in psychology show that intentional solitude can lower stress, improve memory, and even boost creativity, making isolation not a weakness but a hidden superpower. The Sigma understands this deeply, and while others age prematurely under the weight of social pressure, comparison, and endless obligations, he reverses that process by stepping away. His solitude works like a reset button, flushing out the clutter of the world, regenerating his emotional clarity, and aligning him with his true direction. Unlike loneliness, which is imposed from outside, solitude is chosen from within, and it is this choice that transforms time alone into a tool of rejuvenation. Consider how ancient philosophers like Marcus Aurelius or modern innovators like Nikola Tesla thrived in periods of deep seclusion. Their breakthroughs weren't born in crowded rooms, but in quiet spaces where thought could roam freely. The Sigma walks the same path. Solitude becomes his fountain of youth, not just metaphorically, but biologically, since quiet reflection and reduced social stresses are linked to lower cortisol levels and healthier aging. Each hour alone isn't wasted, it's investment. He meditates, strategizes, and rebuilds his energy, turning silence into fuel. This makes him appear timeless, almost ageless, because while the world burns itself out in constant chatter and performance, the Sigma is quietly recharging, conserving his vitality for what truly matters. People may look at him and wonder why he doesn't crave company. But what they miss is that his power comes from within, and solitude is the forge where that power is refined. To the outside world, it may look like withdrawal, but in truth, it is preparation, a hidden ritual of restoration that keeps his spirit clear and his vision sharp. For the Sigma, time alone is not a prison, but a palace, and in that palace he discovers something rare, the ability to remain youthful in mind, body, and soul while others fade under the weight of the crowd. Reason 4, strategic energy use. Every man wakes up each day with a limited supply of energy, much like a bank account. The average man spends his resources recklessly, arguing over trivial matters, chasing fleeting pleasures, and scattering his focus on distractions that yield little value. This constant expenditure leaves him drained, frustrated, and older than his years. The Sigma male, however, approaches energy differently. He understands that it is his most precious currency, and unlike money, it cannot be regained once wasted. Studies in psychology and neuroscience support this. Decision fatigue, for example, shows how making too many small, unnecessary choices throughout the day reduces mental strength and willpower. Sigmas intuitively sidestep this trap. Instead of scattering their attention, they conserve it, channeling their limited daily energy into pursuits that compound over time: personal growth, skill mastery, and carefully chosen relationships. He treats focus like a fortress, allowing very few things inside its gates. This is why others perceive him as calm, unbothered, and resilient, even in chaotic environments. Where most men burn out by overextending themselves, the Sigma thrives by staying selective. This principle is not only philosophical but practical. Athletes, entrepreneurs, and thinkers who manage their energy strategically outperform those who rely on raw effort alone. By investing energy in growth, a Sigma male compounds his vitality over years instead of squandering it. He avoids unnecessary drama and petty battles because he knows they yield no return, much like throwing water into the desert. Instead, he directs his inner fire toward endeavors that multiply, sharpening his mind, strengthening his body, and building rare but meaningful bonds. In doing so, he preserves his vitality, extending not just his stamina but also the quality of his life. While the average man grows weary from constant entanglements, the Sigma's discipline keeps him sharp, focused, and seemingly ageless. Energy, once guarded and wisely applied, becomes the silent force that sets him apart from the crowd. He doesn't simply survive each day. He engineers his strength, ensuring his limited energy fuels only what truly matters. And that is why the Sigma moves through life with a quiet power that others can't quite explain. Reason 5, detachment from drama. Conflict, gossip, and manipulation are often seen as mere annoyances in daily life, but in reality, they act like invisible corrosives, silently accelerating the aging process of those who dwell in them. Studies in psychology and health sciences have shown that chronic exposure to stress and toxic social environments increases cortisol levels, weakens the immune system, and even shortens telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of our DNA strands that are closely linked to cellular aging. Men who are constantly embroiled in arguments, absorbed by gossip, or manipulated by others often carry this stress physically, manifesting in premature wrinkles, fatigue, and even cardiovascular strain. The Sigma male, however, operates differently. He understands that not every battle is worth fighting, and that explaining himself to those who are closed-minded or malicious is a wasted expenditure of energy. This deliberate detachment is not apathy, it is strategic emotional self-preservation. By refusing to engage in the invisible war of social toxicity, he shields himself from the slow, invisible corrosion that eats away at vitality. He walks through life observing without absorbing negativity, maintaining a calm composure while others fray at the edges of their patience. Historical figures and modern psychologists alike have long emphasized the power of mental discipline in preserving health and longevity. The Sigma male embodies this principle naturally, demonstrating that emotional boundaries are as critical to well-being as diet and exercise. He cultivates focus and clarity, channeling his energy into growth, knowledge, and meaningful action rather than petty disputes. This resistance to drama creates a paradox. While the world around him churns with tension and toxicity, he remains remarkably unscathed, almost timeless in his poise. It is this refusal to be dragged into unnecessary conflict that allows him to age gracefully, both internally and externally. Observing such a man can be a lesson in restraint for anyone willing to learn. His life demonstrates that wisdom is often less about what battles you win, and more about which ones you choose not to fight. Where others carry resentment like a permanent weight, the Sigma male glides past with a clarity and serenity that radiates vitality, showing that detachment is not just a personality trait, it is a powerful tool for preserving not only mental peace but physical youthfulness as well. Reason 6, continuous self-improvement. The Sigma male possesses a mindset that fundamentally reshapes how time affects him. Unlike most men who often settle into routines and let life's momentum carry them forward, the Sigma views each year not as a countdown but as an opportunity to refine himself. Skills, knowledge, and discipline for him are not static achievements. They are investments that compound over time, much like interest in a high-yield account. Neuroscience shows that continuous learning and mental challenge actually strengthen neural pathways and can slow cognitive decline, which partially explains why individuals who consistently challenge themselves often appear sharper and more energetic well into their later years. The average man may plateau, accepting stagnation as inevitable, and in that stagnation, aging becomes more visible. Physical fitness can decline, mental flexibility can shrink, and a sense of purpose may erode. The Sigma refuses to fall into this trap. He treats each day as an upgrade, seeking mastery over new skills, exploring unfamiliar ideas, and refining both body and mind. This relentless evolution manifests as an unmistakable energy, a presence that feels vibrant, alive, and often ageless. Research in positive psychology emphasizes that personal growth, curiosity, and goal pursuit are strongly linked to well-being and resilience, contributing to the Sigma's timeless aura. Beyond intellect and discipline, his approach to life is deeply experiential. He travels, experiments, and tests boundaries, constantly collecting knowledge and refining his instincts. This motion, both internal and external, creates a feedback loop. Growth fuels energy, energy fuels more growth, and the cycle maintains his vitality. Culturally, society often praises youth as the pinnacle of energy and attractiveness. But the Sigma flips this perception. He demonstrates that age is not a limitation. It is a canvas for accumulation. Every experience, every lesson learned, every skill honed adds layers to his depth, giving him a magnetic quality that others can sense, even if they cannot articulate it. In essence, the Sigma's refusal to plateau is his secret weapon against the passage of time. While the world often measures aging in years or appearances, he measures it in progress, evolution, and mastery. His life is a living demonstration of the idea that vitality does not necessarily diminish with age. It compounds, grows, and transforms, leaving him perpetually renewed, timeless, and quietly unstoppable. Reason 7, legacy over vanity. Vanity is fleeting. Beauty, status, and public recognition are all fragile constructs, prone to decay and erosion over time. The Sigma male understands this deeply. While the world often obsesses over appearances, social validation, and material symbols of success, he invests his energy in pursuits that outlive the superficial metrics of life. Studies in psychology suggest that external validation, praise, admiration, and perceived attractiveness triggers only short-lived dopamine spikes in the brain. These rewards are temporary, often leaving a person chasing the next fleeting high. In contrast, focusing on mastery, purpose, and meaningful achievements produces long-term satisfaction and resilience. The Sigma's attention is on impact, the knowledge he accumulates, the skills he hones, the influence he imparts, and the legacy he builds. He recognizes that status can rise and fall, beauty will fade with age and trends are cyclical, but true mastery and meaningful contributions echo through time. Historical figures from Leonardo da Vinci to Nikola Tesla embody this principle. They were not obsessed with vanity or fleeting admiration, yet their work continues to inspire centuries later. This mindset grants the Sigma a sense of timelessness. Unlike men who tie their self-worth to how others perceive them, whose confidence ebbs and flows with compliments, the Sigma's confidence is intrinsic, rooted in substance rather than surface. He measures his value by growth, by how well he lives according to his principles, and by the positive effects he leaves on the world. This internal focus also impacts his presence and demeanor. A man who pursues meaning radiates an energy that transcends age. He is calm in the face of superficial judgment and unshaken by societal pressures, because he knows his worth is not bound to physicality or social rank. Moreover, this dedication to enduring qualities cultivates wisdom, patience, and depth, traits often admired subconsciously even by those who prioritize appearances. In a society obsessed with transient beauty and ephemeral prestige, the Sigma stands apart. While others may frantically chase mirrors and likes, he quietly builds, learns, and influences, leaving footprints that withstand the erosion of time. As a result, he possesses a rare kind of agelessness. He is not frozen in youth, but his essence, impact, and influence remain vibrant regardless of the years. In a world addicted to vanity, the Sigma thrives on substance, proving that true immortality is achieved not through fleeting admiration, but through meaningful, lasting contribution. The Sigma male doesn't try to outrun time, he masters it. Unlike those who scramble to defy aging through fleeting trends or vanity, he approaches life with discipline, detachment, and clarity, bending time through deliberate choices and self-mastery. While others expend energy chasing illusions, the Sigma conserves his strength, renews his focus, and rises above trivial distractions. His agelessness isn't about escaping the effects of time. It's about refusing to waste himself on what lacks meaning. By staying curious, remaining unseen, and moving through life unfazed, he becomes not only resilient but also quietly unforgettable, a force shaped by purpose. There's a fascinating paradox in the way Sigma males move through life, one that often leaves people second-guessing their intelligence or even underestimating their value. On the surface, they may appear detached, unbothered, or even clueless. They don't rush to dominate conversations, they don't scramble for approval, and they rarely conform to the loud performance of confidence that society often mistakes for leadership. But this deliberate quietness is far from emptiness, it's strategy. Psychologists suggest that people who appear reserved in social settings often engage in a high degree of observational learning, meaning they process information more deeply than those who are quick to respond. This explains why Sigma males can come across as though they're not paying attention, when in reality, they're mentally cataloging details others overlook. By leaning back instead of charging forward, they maintain control over their energy, conserving it for pursuits that align with their principles and personal freedom. This quiet, almost aloof posture creates an interesting advantage. Being underestimated allows the Sigma male to move without resistance, sidestepping competition and avoiding the traps of ego-driven environments. Historically, figures like Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein were often dismissed as eccentric or socially distant, yet their brilliance thrived precisely because they weren't caught up in chasing validation. Sigma males mirror this pattern, choosing depth over noise, independence over conformity. Their cluelessness is not a lack of awareness, but a filter, a way of tuning out distractions so they can focus on what truly matters. There's also a psychological edge in this behavior. Studies show that people who withhold their full thoughts and intentions are often perceived as more mysterious, which naturally heightens curiosity and respect over time. Sigma males leverage this dynamic, not consciously to manipulate, but because their natural preference for privacy and restraint gives them an aura of unpredictability. In a world addicted to oversharing, this restraint becomes a form of quiet rebellion. It's not about being unseen, it's about being sovereign. Sigma males remind us that real power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And in that whisper lies a mind working several steps ahead, quietly outsmarting the very world that thinks it has them figured out. Number 1, deliberate disengagement. He appears disconnected because he chooses what to engage with. It's not apathy, it's selective focus. In a world that constantly bombards us with information, advertisements, and social demands, most people feel the need to respond to everything and everyone, but not him. He has learned the art of conserving his mental resources by deciding what truly deserves his attention and what doesn't. Modern psychology supports this idea. The human brain is wired with a limited amount of cognitive energy each day, often referred to as decision-making power or cognitive load. Studies show that when we spread our attention too thin, our productivity, creativity, and even emotional stability suffer. That's why he deliberately chooses where to invest his energy. When someone seems disengaged from idle gossip, pointless drama, or shallow conversations, it's not because he doesn't care. It's because he values his focus too much to waste it on distractions. This selective engagement is a subtle strength, especially in a society that rewards constant busyness. Think of it like a spotlight in a dark theater. The stage is full of actors, but the light only illuminates one performer. That's how his mind works. He directs the spotlight of his awareness only onto things that align with his goals, values, or growth. This gives him an aura of mystery, as others struggle to understand why he doesn't react to the same things that pull them in. But behind the seeming detachment lies wisdom. He knows that attention is the most valuable currency in the modern age. Social media platforms, marketers, and even peer groups are all competing for it, often manipulating emotions to keep people hooked. By feigning unawareness of the irrelevant, he protects himself from being drained or controlled. Ironically, what some mistake as disconnection is actually a higher form of connection to himself, his priorities, and his vision for the future. This is why many who carry this trait are often misunderstood, labeled as cold, aloof, or arrogant, when in reality they're simply practicing a discipline that most overlook. They have understood what psychologists, monks, and high achievers all agree on: where your focus goes, your energy flows. And by guarding that focus fiercely, he not only maintains his inner strength, but also commands respect without even asking for it. Number 2, observational priority. Cluelessness often means listening, not speaking. This kind of cluelessness isn't about being unaware or slow. It's about deliberately choosing silence over noise, patience over reaction. When someone appears clueless, they're often absorbing far more than they reveal. Rather than rushing to fill the silence with opinions or explanations, they listen carefully, deeply, and intentionally. They pick up on the tone beneath the words, the context behind the conversation, and the subtle cues that most people overlook. Think of it like a high-quality camera in low light. While the average eye sees only shadows and blur, the lens slowly gathers light, patiently waiting until the picture becomes sharp and clear. This is how the so-called clueless listener operates. He doesn't expose his hand too early. He waits until all the information has filtered in. In fact, studies in psychology show that active listening not only improves memory retention, but also builds stronger social bonds, because people naturally trust those who make them feel heard. By appearing passive, he actually gains the upper hand, collecting insights, spotting inconsistencies, and understanding motives that slip past the average person. Even in history, we see examples of leaders and thinkers who thrived by mastering the art of listening. Abraham Lincoln, for instance, was famously quiet in meetings, allowing others to speak at length while he gathered perspectives, and then delivering carefully chosen words that cut to the heart of the matter. In business, Warren Buffett has often said that one of the keys to his success is not reacting instantly, but letting information settle before making decisions. What looks like cluelessness is really disciplined observation, a skill that shields one from manipulation while revealing truths hidden in plain sight. The paradox is that by seeming disengaged, he's actually the most engaged person in the room. He's decoding emotional undercurrents, predicting outcomes, and silently preparing his move while everyone else is distracted by their own voices. In a world where talking is glorified and silence is underestimated, this ability to appear clueless while quietly gathering clarity becomes a superpower. It's not about being absent. It's about being fully present, just not in the way people expect. Number 3, emotional detachment as strategy. When he seems unaffected or unaware, it's not absence of emotion, it's containment. This distinction is subtle but powerful. In psychology, this is often linked to what researchers call emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's emotional state rather than be overwhelmed by it. Many people confuse calmness with coldness, assuming that if someone doesn't visibly react, they must not feel anything. But in reality, calmness is often the product of great self-mastery. Take the Stoics, for example, ancient philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, who taught that external events are beyond our control, but our reactions are not. They weren't advocating for the suppression of emotions, but rather the discipline of them, learning to pause, process, and respond with clarity instead of impulse. Modern neuroscience backs this up. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and decision-making, becomes more engaged when emotions are managed, preventing the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, from running wild. In other words, calm people aren't emotionless. They're skilled at creating space between feeling and reaction. This containment doesn't make them detached from reality. It makes them better observers of it. By holding emotions in check, they can study them, much like a scientist examining a specimen under a microscope. Imagine a poker player with a winning hand. They feel the rush of adrenaline, but their calm face keeps opponents guessing. This isn't indifference, it's strategy. The same principle applies in daily life. In tense meetings, in arguments, or even in personal crises, the one who stays calm has the advantage, not because they care less, but because they've trained themselves not to be ruled by sudden impulses. Calmness is self-command. It's the ability to steer one's own ship while others are tossed around by storms. Far from being a weakness, this discipline is a sign of strength, one cultivated by thinkers, leaders, and warriors throughout history. When you encounter someone who remains centered in the face of chaos, don't mistake their composure for lack of depth. Instead, recognize it as the rare art of emotional mastery. It's the quiet power that separates those who simply react from those who truly lead. Number 4, avoiding the spotlight. He shuns attention not from fear, but from choice. Oversharing attracts noise, restraint attracts insight. Acting clueless is a cloak, preserving autonomy, masking intention, and frustrating expectations precisely to keep control. This behavior may seem puzzling to many, yet it is deeply rooted in psychology and human dynamics. Research in social behavior shows that those who reveal less about themselves tend to hold more influence in conversations and relationships because mystery compels others to fill in the blanks. Instead of chasing validation, he exercises what sociologists call strategic silence, a conscious decision to step back from the flood of self-disclosure that dominates modern life. In a world where people equate constant sharing with relevance, the man who withholds becomes more intriguing. It's not a game of manipulation, but rather a quiet assertion of independence. History is full of figures who mastered this art, leaders, philosophers, and even inventors who let their actions, not their words, build their legacy. By acting clueless at times, he disrupts expectations, creating a layer of unpredictability that keeps others from neatly categorizing him. This is a deliberate way of maintaining control over his narrative, ensuring that no one has the upper hand in reading or exploiting his intentions. Psychology even supports this as a defense mechanism against what's known as impression management, where others attempt to shape or control how we are perceived. By staying reserved, he flips the script. He becomes the observer instead of the observed. And while some may confuse this restraint for weakness or social awkwardness, it is in fact a sign of discipline and self-mastery. Think of it as the difference between a spotlight and a lantern. The spotlight demands to be seen, often burning out quickly under the weight of its own intensity, while the lantern quietly illuminates its surroundings without ever needing to announce its presence. In the same way, the man who values restraint doesn't chase the fleeting highs of recognition. He invests in long-term clarity, deeper understanding, and sharper awareness. What frustrates others most is not his silence, but their inability to predict his next move. That unpredictability is his shield, and his independence is his strength. In a culture obsessed with constant exposure, his mystery becomes his power. Number 5, intuitive processing. A Sigma absorbs information differently from most people, and this subtle difference often confuses those around him. While many rush to appear knowledgeable in a conversation, the Sigma male is content to sit back, ask seemingly simple questions, and allow others to underestimate him. This behavior isn't a sign of ignorance. It's a calculated way of processing knowledge. Research in psychology shows that people who listen more than they speak often develop a richer understanding of complex topics because they are not distracted by the need to prove themselves. When a Sigma asks questions that sound basic, he's not trying to look clever. He's dissecting the information, stripping it down to its roots, and testing whether the other person truly understands what they're saying. His timing is also deliberate. Instead of interrupting or reacting impulsively, he chooses his moments carefully, often catching people off guard by connecting dots others didn't even notice. This makes his understanding cumulative, like a builder stacking bricks with precision rather than tossing them haphazardly. Over time, the Sigma develops a mental framework that is both wide and deep, allowing him to recall, analyze, and apply knowledge in ways that surprise others. You could say he learns like a sponge, but not one that soaks up everything indiscriminately. He filters, absorbs selectively, and stores what matters. Historical figures often described as lone wolves, such as Nikola Tesla or Isaac Newton, displayed similar patterns of information processing, working quietly and independently while reshaping entire fields of science. Unlike extroverts who thrive on group discussions and feedback, or even alpha personalities who assert dominance through confident statements, the Sigma gains an edge by observing and accumulating insights silently. This is why his wisdom sometimes appears sudden and profound, when in reality it's the result of layers of quiet observation and mental refinement. For those who don't understand this style, the Sigma may seem detached or even aloof, but in truth, he is deeply engaged, just not in ways that are immediately visible. His quiet analysis allows him to see truths others overlook, and his unique approach to learning often positions him as a step ahead in understanding, decision-making, and problem-solving. What looks like passivity is actually strategy, and what seems like simplicity is often the sign of profound depth. Number 6, disarming presence. By appearing harmlessly clueless, the Sigma male often employs one of the most subtle yet powerful psychological strategies in human interaction, the art of disarming. At first glance, people might assume he's detached, uninterested, or even unaware of what's happening around him. This is far from the truth. In fact, it is precisely this projection of harmlessness that allows him to observe without resistance. When someone believes a person is not a threat, their defenses naturally lower. They share more freely, act more openly, and reveal parts of themselves they might otherwise guard. This mirrors an ancient principle in social dynamics and even warfare, the element of surprise impact than direct confrontation. Think of the concept of Wu Wei in Taoist philosophy, which teaches effortless action, the idea that sometimes doing less actually achieves more. The Sigma male's approach reflects this wisdom. By not forcing his presence or opinions, he creates a natural space where others expose their true selves. Then when he does choose to speak, his words land with unexpected force. People are caught off guard, not because he attacked them, but because his insight emerges from a place they never anticipated. This makes the moment both striking and memorable, much like a magician who seems ordinary until the trick is revealed. In psychology, this ties into the principle of cognitive dissonance. When someone assumes you lack awareness, but you suddenly demonstrate clarity, the mind scrambles to reconcile the two, making your message linger longer. What makes this tactic so effective is its gentleness. Unlike the alpha, who often asserts dominance, the Sigma operates in the shadows, proving that persuasion doesn't always require aggression. It's reminiscent of Aesop's fable of the sun and the wind, where the sun's warmth achieved what the wind's force could not. By being tactful instead of forceful, the Sigma male not only protects his energy, but also ensures his influence is deeper and longer lasting. This is why people often leave interactions with him feeling as though they were guided to a revelation rather than pushed into submission. The beauty of this method lies in its paradox, the power of seeming powerless. In a world where many compete to be the loudest, the Sigma's quiet, calculated restraint becomes his sharpest weapon, one that cuts more effectively than blunt force ever could. Number 7, mastery in unspoken action. Actions often carry more weight than words, and this is especially true for men of quiet strength and intelligence. He doesn't need to stand in a room and boast about what he knows or what he's capable of. Instead, he lets his actions reveal his depth. History has shown us countless examples of this principle at work. Think of scientists like Nikola Tesla or leaders like Marcus Aurelius. Both men were known for their restraint in words, but power in deeds. When someone refrains from constantly explaining themselves or proving their worth, they create an air of mystery that draws others in, making people want to understand what lies beneath the surface. This ability to act quietly yet powerfully stems from observation. Rather than rushing to speak, he studies the room, notices details others miss, and gathers information. Modern psychology confirms that people who listen more than they talk often develop sharper critical thinking skills as they absorb diverse perspectives before forming conclusions. By waiting, watching, and choosing the right moment to move, he avoids unnecessary noise and ensures maximum impact with minimal effort. This kind of behavior not only reflects intelligence but also discipline, because true mastery isn't about seeking validation, it's about results. Whether it's in business negotiations, personal relationships, or everyday decisions, his measured actions signal confidence without arrogance. He doesn't need to convince anyone with arguments. He lets his achievements speak for themselves. Over time, this approach builds trust and respect because people begin to realize that when he finally speaks or acts, it's worth paying attention. In a world filled with endless chatter and self-promotion, the man who can remain quiet, observe wisely, and move decisively stands apart as both rare and undeniably powerful. Number 8, comfort in autonomy. Ultimately, his detached demeanor springs from undisturbed independence, a quality that few people truly understand. Unlike most who seek validation from peers, social circles, or even society's shifting standards, he draws strength from his inner compass. This independence is not arrogance, it's sovereignty, a conscious decision to live life on his own terms. Psychology shows that individuals who cultivate internal validation rather than external approval are less prone to stress and anxiety because their sense of worth isn't tied to fluctuating opinions. That's why his apparent cluelessness is more than just aloofness. It's a posture of freedom. When he acts as though he doesn't notice social games, it isn't naivety, it's choice. It's a silent declaration that he measures his world from within, not by the scripts others try to hand him. In a culture obsessed with appearances, trends, and constant feedback, his indifference creates both confusion and intrigue. People may call it detachment, but it is actually focus. He knows that expending energy on superficial approval weakens the ability to pursue what truly matters. Studies in social psychology confirm that those who resist conformity often drive innovation and leadership precisely because they don't bend under pressure. His refusal to play by society's script allows him to write his own, sometimes misunderstood, sometimes criticized, but always authentic. To those watching from the outside, it may look like distance, but for him, it is the clearest form of presence, living aligned with his own values, undistracted, unbothered, and unmistakably free. There's profound elegance in understatement. There's quiet authority in the man who seems to wander, but in fact knows precisely where he stands. To be Sigma is not to confuse silence with absence, but to calibrate presence with intention. So the next time you meet someone who seems a little muddled, a touch aloof, notice, perhaps he's not lost. Perhaps he's simply listening, and in the stillness, quietly shaped by clarity. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If this reflection resonated, stay rooted, stay sovereign. I'll see you in the next gentle exploration. The Sigma male stands out in a world where a lot of guys are always looking for attention, validation, and approval, not because he tries, but because he doesn't. The spotlight finds him even though he doesn't seek it out. The throng turns toward him even though he doesn't follow them. This paradox, this quiet magnetism, is what makes women so drawn to Sigma males. Unlike men who rely on flashy displays, loud words, or desperate attempts to impress, the Sigma moves differently. He operates on a frequency of calm independence, a self-assurance that doesn't demand recognition but inevitably earns it. Think of it like the stillness of a deep lake. While most people splash noisily in the shallow end, making waves for attention, the Sigma rests quietly in the depths. And it is this stillness, this sense of mystery, that women find almost irresistible. They begin to lean in, to wonder, to seek his attention, often without fully realizing why. But this isn't manipulation. It's not about playing games or pretending to be something he's not. The Sigma's power lies in authenticity. He doesn't try to make women beg for his attention. He simply lives in alignment with his own values, his independence, and his inner calm. And in a world full of noise, that calm becomes magnetic. This video isn't about quick tricks or superficial tactics. Instead, we'll take a reflective look at 8 deeper truths, ways in which Sigma males naturally draw women toward them. Some of these might be subtle, almost invisible on the surface, but once you recognize them, you'll see how they shape the quiet strength of the Sigma man. So sit back, take a breath, and let's explore together. Number 1, their comfortable silence. Most men feel pressured to fill silence with words, as if every pause in conversation is an uncomfortable gap that needs to be patched up. This tendency comes from a natural human instinct. Silence can feel awkward because we often interpret it as disinterest, tension, or a lack of connection. Studies in psychology even show that people will often speak simply to avoid silence, not necessarily because they have something meaningful to say. However, Sigma males stand apart in this dynamic. They are not intimidated by silence, nor do they feel the need to constantly perform verbally to prove their presence. Their ability to remain comfortable in quiet moments communicates a deep and unshakable confidence, something far more powerful than nervous chatter. When a Sigma male sits in silence, he's not disengaged, he's fully present, allowing the space itself to do the talking. This subtle quality often intrigues women because it contrasts with a typical social pattern where men rush to impress through words. Instead, the Sigma's calm presence creates an atmosphere of mystery and control, signaling that he doesn't need to chase validation. Interestingly, research into communication styles reveals that people who are comfortable with pauses often come across as better listeners and more emotionally grounded. Women tend to lean into this silence, not out of discomfort, but because it pulls them in, encouraging them to share more and even initiate deeper conversations. The absence of forced words creates room for authenticity, making interactions feel less rehearsed and more genuine. In many ways, this reflects the Sigma male's larger approach to life. He is not competing to dominate space with noise, but rather holding space with presence. This is why silence for the Sigma becomes a quiet form of power. It builds intrigue, allows others to reveal themselves, and transforms what many see as empty air into a meaningful connection. Far from awkward, the Sigma's silence is magnetic because it communicates without speaking. I am comfortable with myself, and I don't need to fill every moment to prove it. For women, this is not just attractive, it's refreshing. A reminder that real confidence is often the loudest when it doesn't need to say a word. Number 2, their detachment from approval. Sigma males stand apart from the typical social script because they don't chase external validation, and this trait alone makes them magnetic. In a world where attention is currency, most people spend their energy trying to be seen, liked, or approved of. The Sigma, however, operates differently. He isn't driven by the approval of others, nor does he measure his worth based on how many people admire him. This independence creates an aura of mystery because people are naturally intrigued by what they can't easily have. Psychologists often note that scarcity increases value, whether it's a rare gemstone, a limited edition product, or in this case, genuine undivided attention. When a Sigma male gives his focus to a woman, she instinctively senses that it isn't casual or scattered. It is intentional. Unlike men who dole out compliments and attention in hopes of receiving something back, the Sigma's interest feels measured, selective, and meaningful. That is why it carries weight. Women often find themselves craving more of it because they realize it cannot be demanded or manipulated, it must be earned. This dynamic also taps into an age-old truth about human nature. We tend to desire most what feels scarce and unattainable. The Sigma's independence, his ability to remain centered in himself without leaning on constant reassurance, positions him as someone who doesn't need others to validate his identity. Studies in social psychology show that individuals who project self-sufficiency are often perceived as higher in status and more desirable as partners. This doesn't mean Sigma males play games. Rather, their authenticity makes them unwilling to fake interest or divide their focus. In relationships, this translates into a unique kind of value. When he chooses to invest his attention, it feels like a privilege because it isn't something he gives away cheaply. For many women, this contrast between men who seek approval and men who stand grounded in their own self-worth can be striking. The Sigma becomes a challenge, not because he deliberately withholds, but because his validation isn't a prize she can win through surface-level effort. She has to genuinely align with his deeper values to keep his focus. That's what makes his attention so powerful. It's not abundant, it's rare. And in the economy of human connection, rarity always breeds desire. And number 3, their focused presence. When a Sigma male decides to give his attention, it is not something done half-heartedly or out of obligation. It is deliberate, powerful, and deeply felt. Unlike many who scatter their focus across conversations, social media, or background distractions, the Sigma male embodies what psychologists call deep presence. In psychology, presence is defined as the ability to be fully immersed in the moment, undistracted by wandering thoughts or external interruptions. Studies in communication have shown that when someone listens with undivided attention, making eye contact, responding thoughtfully, and minimizing interruptions, it creates a measurable increase in trust, intimacy, and emotional bonding. This is precisely what makes the Sigma's attention so compelling. He doesn't just hear someone. He listens in a way that makes the other person feel seen and validated. Women in particular often describe this quality as magnetic, because it is rare to find in a world of constant digital noise and superficial interactions. Think about it. In an age where people can't sit through a conversation without glancing at their phones, someone who puts everything else aside to focus entirely on you feels like a breath of fresh air. That intensity is not performative, it is authentic, which makes it all the more powerful. The Sigma's attention carries weight precisely because he is selective. He doesn't give it freely to everyone, so when he does, it feels like a privilege. This creates an aura of importance around the interaction, almost as if time itself slows down. In many ways, it mirrors the psychological principle of scarcity. The rarer something is, the more value it carries. And because Sigma males are often introspective, analytical, and intentional with their energy, their presence carries a depth that others struggle to replicate. The woman on the receiving end senses that she is not just part of a casual exchange, but engaged in a meaningful connection. This ability to be fully present is what makes a Sigma's interactions unforgettable. It's not about flashy words, rehearsed charm, or grand gestures. It's the quiet but undeniable power of attention. In a society that constantly competes for our focus, the Sigma male stands out by offering the one thing people crave most yet rarely receive: undiluted presence. That presence alone can create an intimacy that lingers long after the conversation ends. Number 4, their minimalist style. Without needing extravagance, Sigma males often embrace simplicity, clean looks, and quiet confidence in their appearance. This understated style isn't about following the latest trends or showcasing wealth through flashy brands. Rather, it reflects a deeper understanding of presence and self-assurance. Studies in psychology have shown that minimalism in appearance often communicates authenticity and stability, qualities that naturally attract attention, without a word being spoken. Unlike men who might seek validation through flamboyant fashion or outward displays of success, Sigma males rely on a grounded aura that says, "I know who I am and I don't need to prove it." This quiet confidence creates an almost paradoxical magnetism. While they're not trying to stand out, they often end up being the most noticeable in the room. Evolutionary psychology suggests that women are subconsciously drawn to traits that reflect security, independence, and authenticity. A man who doesn't seek approval through his looks but still maintains a clean, put-together presence signals reliability and self-mastery. For example, think of figures like Steve Jobs, whose signature black turtleneck and jeans weren't about fashion statements but about clarity, focus, and simplicity. Women interpret this restraint not as a lack of style, but as evidence of intentional living, a man who has his priorities set. It's the difference between dressing to impress and dressing because you're already impressed with yourself. Even subtle details, well-kept shoes, a neat haircut, and calm body language speak louder than designer logos or glittering accessories ever could. Sociologists have also noted that understated style is often linked with higher levels of self-esteem, as those who embrace it aren't controlled by societal pressures to constantly adapt their appearance. This is why women perceive Sigma males as magnetic. Their simplicity highlights something much rarer in today's world. Authenticity, instead of trying to attract. They simply exist in their truth, and that alone is powerful. Women pick up on this unconsciously, drawn not just to the way a Sigma male looks, but to the feeling his presence evokes, a sense of calm, trust, and self-possession. In essence, the Sigma male's understated style is a reflection of inner strength, where every clean line and every deliberate choice communicates confidence without arrogance and authenticity without excess. It's not just fashion, it's psychology, character, and charisma woven together in simplicity. Number 5, their selective energy. Sigma men don't spread themselves thin, and this is one of the subtle yet powerful traits that make them stand out in relationships and life. Unlike men who seek validation by being everywhere, with everyone, or trying to please everyone at once, Sigma males understand the value of their time and energy. They know that attention is a currency. Once spent, it can't be refunded. Psychology backs this up. Studies on scarcity show that people tend to value things more when they are rare or not easily accessible. A Sigma's time is exactly that, rare and not handed out carelessly. For women, this makes his presence feel profound. When he chooses to sit with her, talk to her, or simply spend an evening in her company, it doesn't come across as routine. It feels intentional, deliberate, and meaningful. She doesn't feel like just another option on his schedule. She feels like she is option he deliberately carved time out for. This creates an unspoken message that she has been chosen from among countless possibilities, and that recognition hits deeply. It's also why Sigma men often leave a lasting impression without even trying to perform or put on a show. They understand the principle of quality over quantity, whether it's in friendships, work, or romance. Interestingly, this approach mirrors the philosophy of high performers and leaders throughout history. For example, Steve Jobs was famously protective of his time, focusing only on a few projects that truly mattered. Sigma men apply this principle on a personal scale, choosing depth over breadth. Women notice this difference because it contrasts with the attention-seeking behavior of men who constantly broadcast availability. A Sigma man's selective investment communicates maturity, discipline, and self-respect, qualities that naturally command respect in return. It makes every shared moment carry more weight, as if each interaction is part of a rare collection, not something mass-produced. This is why women often find themselves captivated, not just by the Sigma's mystery, but by the way his actions silently conveys, "I don't give my time to just anyone. If you have it, it's because you matter." In a world where attention is scattered and distractions are everywhere, this focus is magnetic, making Sigma men stand out as rare, high-value individuals whose time feels like a privilege rather than an expectation. Number 6, their depth of thought. Instead of shallow conversation, Sigma males bring depth. And this is one of the most magnetic aspects of their presence. In a world where small talk often dominates interactions, a Sigma man sets himself apart by going beneath the surface. He listens intently, not just waiting for his turn to speak, but genuinely absorbing what the other person is saying. This attentive silence is powerful because it shows he values authenticity over performance. Women find this deeply attractive because it makes them feel understood on a level most men fail to reach. Beyond listening, Sigma males reflect before they respond, offering perspectives that often challenge conventional thinking. This is not about being argumentative, but about expanding horizons. For example, while many may echo the same popular opinion, a Sigma might question its foundation, bringing in a fresh angle rooted in his independent observation and life experience. Psychologists suggest that people are naturally drawn to those who stimulate their minds, and this is precisely what Sigma males do. Their conversations often linger in a woman's mind long after the moment has passed, sparking curiosity and a desire for more interaction. This depth creates an emotional pull far stronger than physical attraction alone because it awakens something rare, a genuine intellectual and emotional connection. When a woman leaves a conversation with a Sigma, she doesn't just remember his words. She remembers how he made her feel, understood, challenged, and inspired. That combination is intoxicating, and it's why women eagerly anticipate his insight. Unlike fleeting charm or rehearsed lines, the Sigma's value lies in his authenticity, his thoughtfulness, and his ability to transform an ordinary conversation into something unforgettable. In essence, he turns communication into connection, and connection into captivation. Number 7, their emotional composure. While others may react impulsively to situations, Sigma males carry themselves with a unique steadiness that sets them apart. This calm composure isn't accidental, it's a product of deep self-awareness and emotional control. Psychologists often describe this as the ability to manage one's inner state without being swayed by external chaos. Unlike men who quickly lose their temper or scramble under pressure, the Sigma male has learned to breathe, assess, and respond with clarity. This steadiness has a powerful psychological effect on those around him, especially women, because it creates an atmosphere of safety and reliability. In evolutionary psychology, stability has always been an attractive trait since it signals strength and dependability, qualities essential for survival and partnership. Women subconsciously associate a composed presence with protection and leadership, which is why being around a Sigma often feels grounding, almost like standing on solid rock in the middle of a storm. His energy communicates that no matter what happens, he won't collapse under pressure, and that is deeply magnetic. Interestingly, studies in social dynamics show that people gravitate toward those who display calm confidence because it lowers collective anxiety and creates a sense of balance in social groups. A Sigma doesn't need to boast, overreact, or dominate to command respect. His steadiness does it for him. This is why women often feel drawn to his presence. It's not just about charm or looks, but about the invisible assurance that he brings into the room. His composure makes him the type of man who can navigate both conflict and connection with grace. And in a world full of noise and emotional volatility, that quiet strength becomes rare, valuable, and irresistibly attractive. Number 8, their unspoken mystery. Sigma males don't reveal everything at once, and that subtle restraint is part of what makes them so captivating. Unlike men who feel the need to overshare to gain attention, the Sigma male understands the psychology of curiosity. Studies in human behavior suggest that mystery creates attraction because the brain craves closure. It wants to solve the puzzle. When a Sigma male withholds certain details about himself, it sparks an almost magnetic pull, leaving women intrigued and eager to learn more. Instead of handing out every detail of his life up front, he lets his character unfold slowly, like chapters in a novel. This doesn't mean he's being deceptive. Rather, he's intentional about what he shares and when. Women often find themselves leaning in, asking more questions, and investing energy into unraveling his layers, which only deepens their interest. The Sigma male's silence and restraint act like a gravitational force, drawing others closer without him needing to chase. It's the contrast to the typical dynamic where men seek attention. Instead, he naturally makes others seek his. In a world where oversharing is common, the Sigma male's ability to keep some things to himself becomes a rare and powerful form of allure. At the heart of it all, the Sigma male doesn't set out to make women beg for his attention. He doesn't strategize, plot, or perform. What makes his presence so powerful is the very opposite. He simply remains true to himself, his independence, his composure, and his quiet depth. These are not acts. They are reflections of a life lived authentically, without the constant need to impress. And this is why women lean toward him. In a world full of noise, he becomes the rare silence that feels refreshing. In a world where everyone is chasing attention, he becomes the one who doesn't need to. It is this difference, this unspoken balance between self-sufficiency and presence that creates the magnetic pull. But perhaps the most important thing to remember is this: the Sigma's strength isn't about women at all. It's about living in alignment with his values, pursuing growth, and maintaining peace within himself. The attention that follows is simply a byproduct, a natural response to a man who is whole, steady, and grounded. So if you're walking this path, don't seek to attract. Instead, seek to become. Live with depth, integrity, and quiet confidence. The right people will notice, and the right ones will lean in, drawn not to the performance, but to the authenticity behind it.